Wealth is not merely a stack of coins or a bank statement. It's a multidimensional construct that encompasses financial, intellectual, social, and even spiritual capital. But what ethical compass guides this accumulation? John Locke, the seminal philosopher, posits that true ownership comes from utility, fairness, and labor. Yet, in our digital age, where money neither spoils nor is finite, Locke's principles are put to the test. The line between ambition and greed blurs when wealth becomes the sole focus, overshadowing compassion and societal well-being. It's not just about having more, it's about the implications of that more. Does it serve just you, or does it serve humanity? Philosophers like Peter Singer remind us that compassion isn't a weakness, it's a cornerstone of collective survival. So as you navigate your financial journey, remember, wealth isn't just about accumulation, it's about alignment. Alignment with ethics, with society, and most importantly, with your own multidimensional self. So as a financial advisor, I see four pillars of wealth being financial, intellectual, social, and spiritual. Dr. John, what's your view on this well-rounded understanding of wealth?
Well, I love that little video clip. First of all, that was lovely and nicely produced. Every human being has a set of priorities, a set of values that they live their life by. When they are living congruently according to their highest values, they're more objective. They bring the blood glucose and oxygen to their forebrain, into the executive center, and they're self-governed. When they do, they have a higher probability of having a sustainable fair exchange mentality and mindset, because they're global in their thinking. They're not thinking of just themselves. They're thinking of their employees, they're thinking of their customers, they're thinking about the society, the ecology, etc. When they are not living by their highest values and they're in lower priorities and they're not delegating those and they're stuck in those, they activate the blood glucose and oxygen to their amygdala. And the amygdala is designed to try to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And it awakens pride, it awakens you might say the seeking of immediate gratification, the greed factor, and they're more vulnerable to have subjective bias interpretations of their reality and their assessments and in their actions. Their perception, decisions, and actions are skewed, and they have a higher probability of trying to get something for nothing instead of giving something and getting something in fair exchange. Sustainable fair exchange is what leads to consistent desire to grow business and wealth. If we're narcissistic, we try to get something for nothing. We don't listen to our customers and our employees. If we're altruistic, we sacrifice for other people, and sacrificing others for us or sacrificing us for others doesn't lead to sustainable fair exchange. So we have a rocky vicissitude approach to business management, and it eventually backfires. So it forces us with symptomatology to guide us back into the authentic path where we're most objective, most clear about a mission of service and something that's a win-win to ourselves and other people. So that little video is a perfect example of the secrets behind the mastery of wealth building.
Daniele, are there lessons from history that can guide us on how we define wealth or mistakes to avoid?
I think that's another thing that's interesting when you look at different cultures and how different cultures approach it, because the variety of human experience in that regard is hard to even underestimate. There's so much out there. There are just so many cultural priorities that don't really necessarily speak to one another. So it's interesting because you can learn from realizing that the cultural context you are born in is not mandated from heaven, is not the only way to be. There are a zillion ways that human beings have structured society, have conceived of wealth. So looking at those different options, to me, is fascinating. Like, for example, if you have wealth measured in numbers, something just as basic as that. If you have wealth measured in numbers, there's no limit to it, right? Because you can always add numbers to your bank account. So it's built into the system, the notion that there's never a stopping point. You're always going to grow constantly. And that makes sense within a context in which wealth is measured in numbers. If wealth is measured just in what you can use, clearly is a very different dynamic. Because now, think of something as basic as hunters-gatherers have the same instincts we have. They are not any more violent or peaceful by nature, but like the context of their life, they would fight about many things. But possessions weren't one of them, because being nomadic meant you have to carry on your back everything you own. And last thing I want is to take somebody else's stuff, because now I have to carry it. And it's like, no, I'm only going to take the stuff that I need from, which is fairly minimal. So in that context, an idea of wealth like the way we would have makes no sense. And to me, I find it fascinating, not necessarily because I believe one system is better or worse. It's not so much about pointing fingers and judging who's right and wrong. It's interesting to see how human beings have approached the subject. And depending on the culture and the time in history in which they were born, that understanding of what wealth means may change radically.
Heather, this concept of ethical wealth, one where the means of accumulation are as important as the ends, how does this apply to the mass affluent with, say, $500,000 versus high net worth? And I'm not even sure what high net worth is these days. Is $1 million enough? Is it 5 million? Is it 15 million?
It's an interesting question. I think that, there are different definitions of high net worth depending on the company that you might be in or how they define it. Sometimes it can be such a barrier as 5 million and above that you're considered high net worth. But I think that thinking about that from mass affluent versus ultra high net worth, what it really gets down to is thinking through the purpose of the wealth for the family. And I'll play off what Dr. John was saying, that the values of a family are really the cornerstone when you're planning for that legacy. And that can cross any wealth level. So certainly while there might be more buying power, depending on the amount of wealth you have, the very cornerstone of those values, which drives your vision and the purpose of the wealth, is universal across wealth level.
And I want to ask Caleb, because you have your finger on the pulse of financial trends. How do you think that the digital age is reshaping our approach to wealth and our desire to impact causes that mean something to us?
I think it's pretty scattered if you look at it. And if you look at social media and you have kids or teenagers like I do, I got teenagers, then wealth is very drippy. It's very splashy. It's, people living their best life or wearing the newest and the latest. And it's very about that, not about accumulation of wealth or the ability to build wealth to have financial freedom and build a legacy. One thing I find really fascinating is one of the most popular questions we got on Investopedia, believe it or not, is what is money? And I don't think people are actually asking that in the simplest way. I think they're asking that in a metaphysical way. And I think the digital age has brought that about. When you have cryptocurrency, when you have buy now, pay later, when you have the ability to just put your phone down and pay for something, when you have all of these things that disassociate you from the way a lot of us grew up with money or a lot of the ways past generations grew up and evolved with money, it becomes very different, a very different notion of what money and wealth is. But I love this question because I ask it to all the financial advisors and the big investors that I talk to. Define money, define wealth. And for many people, who deal with clients, especially, wealth is really the ability to afford the life you want to live. How much does it cost to be you? How much does it cost to be the you want to be? The wealth is the ultimate tool to create that scenario in an evolved type of way. Of course, it appears all over the place in social media, TV, movies, in different facets. But when I think about planning, legacy, and estate building and building generational wealth, it is really the answer to that question. How much does it cost to be the you want to be, you and your family?
Yeah, we can talk all day about defining money. And I love that it's something that is always evolving, especially with the advent of digital currencies. Let's move to segment 2.